Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the Week 9 NFL slate, covering each position, talking about some of my favorite plays, giving my early looks and early thoughts on this 10-game Week 9 slate. Talking about quarterbacks, the studs I like, the value plays, go through each position and do that for every position. And I'll just try and give as much analysis in this video as I can. But before we do get started, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like on the video. It really means a lot. Also, if you have not subscribed yet, make sure you click that subscribe button down below. I upload these NFL videos every week. I make NBA videos daily as well, so have a ton of DFS content coming out for you guys. Really would appreciate it if you would subscribe and stick around. But yeah, let's go ahead and look at quarterback for this Week 9 slate. Starting up top, we have Patrick Mahomes against Cleveland on the road. He is 7,100. I do like Mahomes here. I'm going to have exposure to Mahomes. The dude's just so good. He's not priced up enough. At 7K last week, he put up 30 DraftKings points against Denver. I was expecting Mahomes to be at least 75, closer to 8K this week. At 7,100, I'll for sure have exposure to Mahomes. Definitely not my favorite quarterback, though. I do like the savings you get going down from Mahomes to Cam Newton. I love Cam Newton here. I don't expect him to be very popular since he got priced up for this matchup, and also since he's so close to Mahomes in price, I expect a lot of people just to play Mahomes over Cam Newton. And I feel like this could be one of those Cam games where he just goes for like 30, 35 DK points, gets a couple rushing touchdowns. It's a great matchup for him at home against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay secondary, just so bad. They're terrible against the pass. Great spot for Cam. One of the highest totals on the slate is in this game, a 54 total right now. The Panthers have a 30.5 implied total, so Vegas is expecting him to score points. I think they will, obviously. Great spot for Cam. We'll talk about DJ Moore when we get to receiver. I think he's a good value receiver. Obviously, we'll talk about McCaffrey when we get to running back. I think McCaffrey is definitely in play. You can stack Cam with McCaffrey. Usually, I don't like to stack a quarterback with the running back, but with how much they use McCaffrey in the passing game, you could definitely do that. You could also play Cam by himself because with the rushing ability he has, he can he could run 2 touchdowns in and just really, do it all on his own. So I love Cam up top at quarterback. I'll be trying to pay up for him in a lot of lineups this week. If I need to go a little bit cheaper, they're definitely good plays a little bit cheaper. So Drew Brees and Jared Goff, both from that Rams-Saints game, I think are in good spots. I think if I had to choose one, I probably would play Brees since he's at home. We know how well Brees does at home. The Rams secondary, not nearly as good as it was to begin the year. They're a little injury depleted. And this game also has a very high total, a 60 total right now, the highest on the slate. Panthers and Bucks is second highest at 54. So Panthers, Bucks, Saints, Rams, 2 games you're definitely going to want to have some players in because there's points expected to be scored. I like Brees and Goff from that game if I need to go cheaper at quarterback. And then sub 5K if I'm trying to find some value. Big Ben's really cheap, but if it's a tough spot for him on the road against Baltimore, even with Ben's price tag, I'll probably be avoiding him this week. Baker Mayfield at home against KC, I do like here. KC really struggles defensively. Their defense is just not that good. Baker Mayfield's at home, 5,600. I think he's in play as a value quarterback. Phillip Rivers' price tag stands out to me against Seattle. Seattle's defense not nearly as good as it used to be. At 5,600, I do like Phillip Rivers as a cheaper option. If you want to go to Fitzpatrick at 5,500, he's going to be starting this week for the Bucks. I think I'd rather play Phillip Rivers and I'd rather play Baker Mayfield. But Fitzmagic, definitely an option if you want to go there. That game's going to have some points scored in it, so I do like Fitzpatrick at 5,500. But I think that's the cheapest I'll be going at quarterback. I don't expect myself to be playing much Joe Flacco or Alex Smith or Brock Osweiler or Keenum. I don't expect to be on these guys this week. So I'm trying to pay up mostly at this position and get either Cam, Mahomes, Brees, Goff. If I can't get those guys in some lineups, then don't mind going down to Baker Mayfield, Phillip Rivers, maybe even Fitzpatrick. But that's it for quarterback. Let's move on to running back. Todd Gurley up top here. For me, he's just a plug-and-play. 9,500, still too cheap of a price tag for Todd Gurley. Once Gurley gets to like 10.5, 11K, then I think we definitely need to really think hard about, is Gurley worth the price tag? But at 9,500, I'll just lock in his 30 fantasy points every week. The dude's just a beast. He's going to get you 100 rushing yards most likely. He's going to catch 5 or 6 passes, probably going to find the end zone at least once, if not twice. With all the points expected to be scored in this game, just love Gurley here. I think there's a lot of cheap options at receiver, even some cheap running backs, to where it's pretty easy to fit Gurley in this week. I'll be playing him in a ton of lineups. Obviously, just one of the best plays on the slate. I don't really need to tell you that. So let's go ahead and look at other running backs. So Melvin Gordon, listed as questionable. He is 8,200 against Seattle. I expect that Melvin Gordon plays this week, but I don't think I'm going to be on him a ton. I think I'd rather go down to Christian McCaffrey. I really like this spot for Christian McCaffrey at home against this really bad Bucks defense. This is a really good spot for McCaffrey. Did get priced up to 7,800, but I'm willing to pay that price tag for this matchup. I'll be stacking Cam with McCaffrey in a lot of lineups, probably running it back with some receivers from the Bucks, because I think this game does have some game stack potential. If you think the Bucks can score points and keep up with the Panthers, then you're definitely going to want to stack this game. And I'll for sure have McCaffrey in a lot of lineups, but since I did plug in Todd Gurley into the core, we'll stay away from too expensive running backs, so that way I can leave you guys some salary if you do want to build around these five. But let's look at other running backs. So Alvin Kamara, 7,300, feels a little too cheap. Kamara finally had a good game last week, even with Mark Ingram at running back. Kamara still got 20 touches last week against Minnesota. 26 DraftKings points, just looked a lot better than Mark Ingram. In this matchup against the Rams, I think this sets up really well for Kamara. I do really like him at 7,300. In that 7K range, him and McCaffrey are by far my favorite plays. Kareem Hunt, James Conner, probably won't be going to those guys a ton. I think I'd rather play McCaffrey over Hunt. Definitely would rather play Kamara over Conner. This is a really tough spot for James Conner on the road against Baltimore. Just a really tough spot for the Steelers in general. So let's go ahead, look for some value at running backs. So if Royce Freeman is out again at 5,500, Phillip Lindsay, a very strong play in my opinion. Last week with Royce Freeman out, Phillip Lindsay got 18 carries for 95 yards against the Chiefs. Was 5 yards away from the 100-yard bonus. Also got 3 catches for 17 yards. Did get a rushing touchdown. 20 DraftKings points last week. I'd expect a similar performance for Phillip Lindsay here if Royce Freeman is out. I do like him at 5,500, but since we don't know if Freeman's out, I'm try and go a little bit cheaper. At 4,500, Nick Chubb stands out to me as a value running back. He gets a really good matchup here against Kansas City. Like I mentioned earlier, their defense just in general, not very good. Nick Chubb clearly taken over the number one running back role for the Browns. He got 18 carries last week against Pittsburgh. Also got 3 targets, 2 catches for 10 yards. Duke Johnson has really not been involved at all for the Browns. They're really leaning on Chubb in the running game. And although I don't like playing guys on DK that don't get a ton of targets, Chubb's pass game involvement is sort of trending up every week. I'd expect him to get about 4 or 5 targets here, especially if they're playing from behind against KC. And like I said, they have shown that they really don't want Duke Johnson on the field, or just Duke Johnson isn't getting on the field. He only got like 4 or 5 touches last week. Chubb, back-to-back weeks, starting at running back, has gotten at least close to 20 touches, if not exceeded that amount. So really like him at 4,500. If he finds the end zone, he's probably going to be a really good cheap option. He's probably going to get 70, 80 rushing yards. If he finds the end zone, that's 14 DK points. If he catches a couple passes, that's probably 16, 17 right there. So definitely think he can pay off this price tag at 4,500. I do want to mention Austin Eckler. So if Melvin Gordon somehow is not ready to play come Sunday, Austin Eckler at 4,300 is probably the best value running back. I would rather play Eckler over Chubb, but that's only if Melvin Gordon is out. We do not have that news yet, as I'm recording this video on Tuesday. So I think that's it for running back. Let's go ahead and move on to wide receiver. Adam Thielen leads the top of this position. He's 8,900. Gets a matchup against Detroit, where he most likely will be guarded by Darius Slay. But that's probably not going to keep me off of Thielen. Just love Thielen every week. The dude's just one of the highest floor plays. Him and Todd Gurley, you can just pretty much lock in for 20, 25 fantasy points. Thielen continues to get 100 yards every game. He got the 100 yards again last game against New Orleans, 7 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown, 26 DraftKings points. I think it's going to be pretty hard to force Thielen in this week because I'd probably prioritize Gurley over him. But maybe if some value opens up, Thielen's definitely my favorite expensive receiver. I'd play him over AB. I'd play him over Hopkins. Play him over Mike Evans, over Tyreek Hill. If I'm paying up at receiver, I'll just go up top to Thielen. But in the 7K range, you do get some savings if you want to go down from Thielen to maybe a guy like Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, $1,300 cheaper than Thielen. Definitely makes sense. Really good spot for him at home against the Rams. Like I talked about, this Rams secondary, really just not good. Not as good as it used to be to begin the year. And although Michael Thomas hasn't been as great lately, he's been struggling. I would say the Saints have been in some tough spots lately, like Week 7 on the road against Baltimore, Week 8 on the road against Minnesota, two really good defenses. Now they're back at home in a high-scoring game against the Rams. Really good spot for the Saints to bounce back, and a really good spot for Michael Thomas at 7,600. I do like him if you're going to the 7K range at receiver. But we'll kind of skip over these mid-tier plays and try and hit on some value. So going cheap, we'll go 5K and under. There's definitely value I like. So mention a game stack for Tampa Bay, Carolina. I think Deshaun Jackson, if you're stacking that game, a really, really strong play. With Ryan Fitzpatrick starting at quarterback for the Bucs come Sunday, I expect Deshaun Jackson to probably be the guy that Fitzpatrick leans on the most. We saw when Fitzpatrick was starting to begin the year, Deshaun Jackson was getting plenty of targets and was just having really good games. Week 1 against New Orleans, 34 DK points, 5 targets, 5 catches, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. That game was with Fitzpatrick starting. Week 2 against Philly, 4 catches, 4 targets, 4 catches, 129 yards and a touchdown, 25 DK points. That was with Fitzpatrick starting. Fitzpatrick has just shown that he leans on Deshaun Jackson more than he does Mike Evans. And although I don't think Jackson's going to get us like 12 targets here, we know he has that big playability. For tournaments, I love Deshaun Jackson and a game stack of this game. Like I said, I'll be playing Cam, probably stacking him with McCaffrey, maybe stacking him with DJ Moore. On the other side, I'll have some exposure to D-Jax, probably even some Mike Evans, not a ton though. I'd rather just play D-Jax at 5K. I think he has a lot of upside to return a ton of value on this price tag. So I really like him as a value receiver. Sammy Watkins coming off a really big game at 4,900. I think he might be somewhat popular this week. People will probably be point chasing that. He had like a 30-point game last week. Against Cleveland, you could go to Sammy Watkins, but I think I would rather play D-Jax, especially in tournaments. You're going to get D-Jax, in my opinion, really low owned this week. But then the sort of chalkier plays, but really good just overall values at receiver. Devontae Parker, I expect to be pretty popular this week, but he's just a really good option. 4,600. I'm expecting him to get close to 10 targets here, if not exceed that amount. So he returned from injury Week 8 against Houston, got 9 targets, 6 catches, 134 yards, 22 DraftKings points. The Dolphins don't have a ton of healthy receivers. Brock's not really going to have a ton of guys to throw to. If Tannehill's able to return for this game, that's even better for Devontae Parker. I'm expecting plenty of targets to go his way and just has so much upside to really return a lot of value on this price tag. So he's clearly one of the better values at receiver in my opinion. Also DJ Moore as well, especially if you're playing Cam and you want to stack him with somebody. DJ Moore at 4,300 saw 6 targets last week, 5 catches for 90 yards, also got 2 rushing attempts for 39 yards. Torrey Smith was out for that game. If Torrey Smith is out again, then DJ Moore, 4,300 is definitely a value receiver that I think is for sure in play, especially if you're playing Cam and you want to stack him with maybe DJ Moore. You do also have Chris Godwin at 4,400. If you're potentially stacking that game, you can play him on the Tampa Bay side. But I think that's it for receiver, at least the receivers that really stick out to me. So let's go ahead and quickly go over tight end and defense. So starting off at tight end, up top we have Travis Kelce, 6,600. Don't feel like I'm going to be playing Kelce a ton this week. It's just going to be hard to pay up for tight end when I'd rather pay up for guys like Gurley, Thielen. It's just hard for me to force a ton of my salary into the tight end position. So usually try and go cheap here. Greg Olsen, 4,700. Definitely like. David Njoku burned me so hard last week getting that 0 out of him. But he gets another good spot here at home against KC. I'll be going back to David Njoku. I'll for sure have him in plenty of lineups. But Greg Olsen is healthy now, and he gets a good matchup here against Tampa Bay. At 4,700, I believe he caught a touchdown last week. Let's see what his line was last week. 4 targets, 4 catches, 56 yards and a touchdown. We could easily get a similar performance out of Greg Olsen, maybe even a better performance given the matchup. So him and Njoku, really like up top at tight end. O.J. Howard, if you're stacking that game at 4,300, he's definitely a play for me. And in sub 4K, looking for the value plays, maybe Austin Hooper against Washington you could go to. We've seen Hooper get a lot of targets this year, just be really involved. He's potentially an option. Maybe Vance McDonald, but I don't think these are going to be core plays for me. I expect to have a lot of tight end exposure to Njoku and to Greg Olsen and to O.J. Howard. But Hooper, McDonald, I'll have in a sprinkle of some of my lineups. But I think that's it for the tight ends that really catch my eye and stick out to me. So let's move on to defense. This is always a position I try and go cheap at, but you do have the Bears in a great spot against the Bills. At 4,100, obviously the Bears are a smash play. It's just fitting them in is going to be really, really tough. Like I said, I'd like to try and go cheap at defense. So let's look at some of the cheaper defenses. You have the Dolphins at home against the Jets at 2,800. Really like that spot for the Dolphins. Maybe even the Ravens against Big Ben. I mean, I usually don't like taking defenses against the Steelers, but the Ravens, we know they have a really good defense. Big Ben, not as good on the road. Will definitely take some sacks. We've seen Big Ben struggle at times. So 2,500, I think the Ravens defense for sure in play if you're trying to go cheap. Like even the Bills you could do at 2,300 at home against Trubisky. I still don't think Trubisky is that great of a quarterback. I think he is prone to have his bad games. So 2,300 Bills defense for sure in play if you want to do that. But I expect a lot of my exposure to be on the Dolphins this week and on the Ravens at 2,500 and 2,800. So defense, that's probably it for me. I think that is it for the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. Hopefully the video did help you. If you enjoyed, just make sure you click that like button down below. I would really appreciate it. Also, make sure you have subscribed to the channel so that way you won't miss out on any of my new videos. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so. The link to my Twitter is down below in the description box. Give me a follow there. If you have any questions, you can DM me. I'm always active on Twitter. I have my DMs open, always replying to your guys' questions. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And good luck on this Week 9 slate. Peace.